was driving in to prepare for this program tonight, I was discussing just the possibility that it is indeed a rare opportunity that human beings have when they occupy the same space on this earth to meet one another and to really share vibrations and the good things and the bad things with one another. But what is even more outstanding is to meet a person who has done immeasurable, or shall we say profound, things in their lifetime, and to be able to learn from that and to share that. And just quoting from something which was recently published, it says, "Overall, I've had a very good life, a life of cotton and caviar, and the cotton years have made the caviar far more savory than they would have been had my early life been an easy one." And that's a quote from Alone with Me, 1976, published by Miss Eartha Kitt. And I'd like to thank you for being here with us tonight.
You're welcome.
And after rushing down here, it's truly a fascinating thing that you are here.
Yes, I must say you drive very well.
Well, that's not what I've been told. Thank you very much. You're here in town appearing at DB's Club, right?
Yes.
And how long has it been since you've done a tour like this and performed in the United States?
I think last summer I did a show for the Theatre Guild, which was traveling across the country, a musical, but I only did a spot in the show. I only sang about maybe 5 songs in it. It was not my show. It was a show of the Theatre Guild. And before that, I was very spasmodically in America.
I realize. I'll get back to that. But going back to that quote, how did you come by that? I mean, obviously that is a reflection of what happened in your life, and now at this age, you're able to measure all of those experiences.
But I think I had been measuring them all my life. Except that when you get to a certain point and you begin to realize what you have gone through, and you use it as an asset rather than a hindrance, that every moment of your life has been extremely interesting. And you have been in school all the time. And this is what I feel all the time, no matter what end of the world I'm in or what experiences I'm having. I'm quite aware that I am constantly in school. And I will only get my diploma according to what one feels is going to be on my tombstone. That will be my diploma.
I wonder what would the tombstone of Eartha Kitt read like, especially considering that you've been referred to in many ways, some pleasant and more frequently some very derogatory. We were just talking about sometimes you've been called difficult.
I've been called just about everything I can possibly mention derogatorily. But, you know, it makes me sort of cry for 5 seconds, and then you be constructive about it for the rest of your life.
Absolutely.
I think that no matter what happens in your life, as you said, there have been some derogatory things that have happened to me, but nothing to me is derogatory. It depends on how I use it. I cannot tell other people or explain to other people why things are being said about me, or however they feel is their problem or their thing, and however I feel about myself is something else again. Therefore, I cannot go through life apologizing for what I do or for what I say or for my behavior.
You've never done that, have you? I mean, really?
No, because I never do anything deliberately to hurt anybody, because I think that everything in life comes back on you. And if you are a hateful person, and you are a derogatory person, and you're a mean person, you're a hateful person, and you're out to get, you know, in a mean way, it's got to turn back on you. Therefore, no matter what I do, it's always with that, even though I may not know it at the time, it is that I never do anything to hurt anybody. But at the same time, I know I have to be constructive, I have to be honest, and I have to be sincere about whatever it is that I'm doing.
Okay, obviously natural transition into what you've been asked about 1,000 times on this tour, and obviously it's a very, how can I put it, it was a very interesting time in history in that you know and I know the whole thing around your invitation to the lunch or brunch with Lady Bird Johnson.
Yes.
And the subsequent things that happened with that.
Well, first of all, Lady Bird Johnson asked me to come to the White House to give my opinions as to why there is so much juvenile delinquency in the streets of America. And that is what the invitation said. And she asked me, because I have been all my life, particularly since I started to become a name, and I realized that I was becoming something, that you want to give something back to the community.
Let me interrupt you for that point, because you've been, one of the derogatory things that was said in an article recently was that you hadn't really concentrated your energies prior to this point in terms of working, for instance, in the ghetto. And I know that not to be correct, that you had spent a lot of times before it was popular working in Watts, your dance class, and other things.
You started in Harlem.
In Harlem, indeed, right?
Yeah.
Right. Long before it was even acknowledged, right?
I know,
Okay.
but I mean, I cannot explain for other people's opinion.
Okay. Fine.
And therefore, I know what I am. Je suis comme je suis né comme ça, et c'est tout. Il faut pas expliquer des choses comme ça. But at any rate,
I speak
whatever
French,
I have done,
okay.
I have done it because I felt I wanted to do it.
Right.
Not because it was a popular thing to do. And therefore, I did not publicize what I was doing, because I was not doing it for commercial reasons any more than today. Whatever I do is not for commercial reasons, except for what I'm doing in order to survive on the stage. That speaks for itself. But when you get back to the question that you asked me about the White House luncheon, I was invited to the White House because of what I had been doing all my life, really. And eventually it got to the White House through Congressman Buczynski, who was a congressman at that time. He's now an alderman in Chicago. And he reported to Hubert Humphrey what I had been doing all my life, so to speak. And the situation that really stimulated this request that I come to this luncheon was what I did in Washington, by helping a group of kids who are our kids of the ghetto fund themselves through government funding to do their own thing, that they could go out and get kids from the street to come into their unit and find jobs and become constructive citizens rather than quote-unquote derogatory citizens or derogatory human beings. And we got several areas of Washington cleaned up. Poverty areas that didn't have any hot water got hot water. Areas that didn't have pavement on the streets got paved. Areas that didn't have any recreational centers got recreational centers. Pools that had been closed up for obvious reasons were suddenly opened. Locks on school gates were suddenly taken off because the kids need the schoolyards more after school than they do during school hours. Right. And as they were trying to climb the walls in order to have a place to play, the cops would come and grab them and, reprimand them. But I said, take the locks off the gates so that the kids are not playing in the streets. The schoolyards are one of the only places that they have to play. Right. So let them have the schoolyards after school, as well as during the school recess time, which happens to be like, a half an hour or whatever that case may be. Anyway, that's one of the reasons why I was asked to come to the White House, to give my opinions as to why there is so much juvenile delinquency in the streets of America. But when I raised my hand and Mrs. Johnson gave me the floor, after I heard things like, well, we should build bigger streetlights so that if we are going to be attacked, we can see who is going to attack us. We should put flower pots on the windowsills of the poverty areas of America, so to cover it up, make it look pretty, And I asked Mrs. Johnson, don't you think that it would be better to get rid of the rats in Harlem, for instance, and then put the flower pots?
Right.
You cannot cover up something by putting a Band-Aid on it.
The rats can knock them down.
You have to find the core.
Right.
You have to find the core of the matter. Right. And don't you think also that perhaps it might have something to do with our involvement in Vietnam? Because our boys feel that if we are good guys, we are the ones that are most apt to get the gun, to go shoot and kill and steal. And as a result, me as a mother who has brought my child up by the 10 Commandments. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, and do all of the good things that Christianity should be all about, and supposedly is all about. That's what they have been teaching us ever since existence, that
Absolutely.
we can remember. That now you are taking the child and throwing it into a position where all of these 10 Commandments are now meaningless. And after it is going through that ism, you bring it back home and you don't detrain it. You throw it back into the society. And it still has that killer instinct that you've taught it, whereby us mothers have been trying to say, don't kill, don't steal, don't do anything, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And now it's confusing not only to the child, but it's also confusing to me as a parent.
Right. So as a result of that,
President Johnson picked up the telephone, and this is all on my dossier. And that dossier is inextricably interesting. You should read it.
and I can imagine they talked about obviously your sex life and all of these other things.
Which they know nothing about. I think on the dossier I missed out on something during my living in Paris.
Maybe
all they had to do was call up Johnson Publication, you know. They would have found out more about me than anybody
Well, maybe
else
they should have called you and just said, well, Eartha,
they could have read my book, Thursday Child, the first one. They would have known more than anybody
then you would have
else
gotten
could
some
tell them.
royalties out of it anyway. Okay.
I'm supposed to be a sex nymphomaniac, so watch it.
Okay. Well, in that case, we'll just turn off the cameras. Okay, now we both have dossiers, obviously. But so after that point, the practical economic thing is that you couldn't work. I mean, you were hounded, right?
Yes,
as far as I
I
understand.
was. It's like your telephone is being invaded, your letters are being confiscated or read, and you're hounded. They go into areas that you are working or you are about to be going to work in, or that you had been working in, and they start asking questions. And it is not that the venues themselves, the hotels or the nightclubs or whatever, are against me personally. Is that they don't want to be harassed by the White House.
Right, it was just...
And when they come in and they start asking questions about, do you know anything about Eartha Kitt? And they go, oh my God, well, we don't want you guys hanging around, so then they don't hire you. So that I was out of a job in America for all of these years, except for those few friends who kept me to some extent, in the eye of the public, such as Mike Douglas, Merv Griffin. They were very, very good friends to me during those years, and I'm very grateful to them for that.
You find now that you are looked upon with more respect by people in various quarters wherever you go as a result of what you had to say, because you've been proved to be right. The war in Vietnam has been acknowledged to be a mistake and immoral in that respect. In other words, now it seems that since you've been proved right, people say that Eartha Kitt is indeed a person worth revering. A lot of people do.
I cannot answer that, really.
Right.
All I know is that now I am being asked to come back to America and work. But, you know, it's like you can go back to Paul Robeson, too,
Right.
and look at what they did to him. And it is a shame, really, because even though I love this country, I think I've been in 104 countries in the world, and I always want to come home. But I want this country to fulfill its promises. You know, even going back to the seasons of 40 acres and a mule, we never got that. We never got the freedom. They only took the chains off, but they never allowed my soul to exercise itself like a decent human being, and that's what I'm fighting for all of us. I don't care who it is.
I don't know too much what to say to that, and I wonder. You mentioned Paul Robeson, and I think about the same thing, is that now that we're around and we're able, some of us in the media, to give you an opportunity, a person like yourself who is sensitive and committed, whether or not we ever will have the opportunity to acknowledge, say, the greatness of a person like Robeson. Did you know him personally, by the way?
Yes, I didn't know him too well, but I was at a lot of his concerts. where people were throwing stones at him rather than recognizing what his spirit was all about. It's very easy for people to throw stones at you when they don't understand, rather than searching to find out what you are all about. I think that's a great mistake that we make between each other. Human beings are supposed to love one another and recognize each other as whatever it is that we have to offer in order to enhance the other one, help them grow and build and become whatever it is that human beings should really be all about, rather than allowing ourselves to be destroyed by that which we feel is derogatory. We fall into unhealthy traps by having people call us names, and rather than laughing about it and using it as energy to build on, we fall into a trap of weakness and say, well, we're not wanted. I'm going to go to sleep for a while. So we start drinking too much alcohol, we get on cocaine, we get on anything that makes us put ourselves in a position where then they, whomever they are, who are in power, then point a finger at you and say, see, I told you so, you can't handle it.
What do you think are the prospects now? Because what you said at the White House in '68 is just as true today. There was a supposed juvenile crisis, juvenile delinquency crisis in America now. Maybe 40% of black youngsters, particularly, and poor youngsters in general, are unemployed. And juvenile delinquency, or what is called juvenile delinquency, is supposedly very, very much in evidence today. What is the prospect for the realization of the thing that you're talking about, for America to be what it should be?
Not fall into those traps of weakness. I think that as long as we feel, any of us feel, and I'm not talking about whether you're black or white, because we're all in the same trap. We're all in the same trap of those who are taking advantage of our energies for their benefits.
Those who are in power.
Rather than allowing us to be properly educated, and I mean all of us, Americans in general, to be properly educated to elevate ourselves from the ghetto of anywhere. I think that high taxation is one of the most dangerous things. It is so dangerous that we have not been able to, even with the education, elevate ourselves. Because in that way, we are being killed as well. So that when you are educated, you find that high taxation does not allow you to get your head out of the ghetto, because you cannot see where you're going. Because the more you make, the more they take, rather than having just 1% for everybody. No deductions for anybody. Take care of the poor as long as the poor is really poor, rather than allowing those strong who are poor to remain weak. You should keep them, give them encouragement to elevate themselves. And the only way you can do that is you put one taxation on everybody, so that whoever I am, whomever you are, you can see by every penny where you want to go and where you can go. Whether you want to be the highest educated person in the world, or whether you just want to make a lot of money and obtain material things, or if you want to just be what they call just a person who just makes enough money to get by. That should be the decision of the individual, not the government. This country is supposed to be run by the people, not by the government. But the people are not doing their job, because the people are allowing the government to take over and dictate to the people what they want the people to do, rather than the people doing the reverse. Now, when the people realize, you know what happens? If this country really decided not to pay any taxes, what would happen?
Obviously,
everybody would be prosperous, like the country said. This is a prosperous country.
Right.
There should be no poverty in this country. There should be nobody in this country who is ostracized because of his color, his religion, or the fact that he doesn't have the right kind of teeth. There should be no such thing. But you know, at the same time, I look at the Statue of Liberty, and what does that Statue of Liberty says? With her arms like this, you know, give me your poor, give me your oppressed, give me your unwanted, Those may not be the exact words.
Right.
But what she says is, give me that which you do not want, and we will take care of it. Which means that under that banner, you can never become anything. Because once you start to become something, they say, oh, stop it.
Right.
This country is supposed to take care of the unwanted, not those who are in a position to take care of themselves.
Indeed.
France is brilliant by sending us that Statue of Liberty. Brilliant.
You know,
because psychologically, it seems that philosophically she knew what this country was going to be all about.
Did you find that when you were in Europe, the beginning of your career was more or less, I mean, you were acknowledged in France before you were in the United States as a how can I put it, an outstanding artist?
As a successful
As a successful, okay. No, that's not what I read. I read that you were acknowledged really as a talented cotton picker, star, really. But
talented, successful human being.
Right, absolutely.
And I think that one can say, I'm a successful mechanic, I'm a successful teacher, I'm a successful mother, but you know, we are successful human beings. And all of these isms come under that category. And it doesn't matter whether my name is on the marquee or not. I feel successful within myself because I feel successful. I'm a decent human being. And I like myself very much, therefore I'm successful.
You know, that's interesting because now what you find is a lot of young people, particularly, will try to emulate artists or stars, people who are stars that they see. And it's very infrequent that a person of your stature in the business and the entertainment business says the things that you've said. And do you find that the young people that you work with are benefited by the philosophy that you project, or do you even talk to them about these things? In addition to doing the dance classes, do you talk to them about some of the things we've discussed?
I talk to them about it, yes. But if the mothers do not follow through, then the children, 9 out of 10 of the children, are going to fall by the wayside. And they make excuses for themselves. They say, well, my mother wasn't able to bring me to the class. Or we don't have the proper kind of transportation. Or I didn't feel well. Or something. Rather than making it that person's business. They say, this is something that is constructive for me, and by Jove, I'm going to do it if I have to walk there. I mean, I cannot say that the kids today should do exactly what we did when we were kids. But, you know, school to us was 20 miles away.
Right.
And we wanted that education. We wanted so badly to be aware, to be able to read and write. To some extent, we walked to the school. And even though I, as a kid, not being black, not being white, and being refused by the blacks and the whites, nobody wanted me because that's an ugly duckling. She's not black enough for us to accept her, and she's not white enough for them to accept her.
I was reading something.
But to me, I can laugh about it, you know, because I set out, I'm sure in the back of my head that said, okay, you don't want me, there are not enough Indians around to do anything about it. I'm going to prove to you that I'm worthwhile being here, doggone it.
you know, I heard that you mentioned about blacks and whites among, when you said you weren't wanted. And that was one of the kind of interesting things, because I read that said that some people said that you were too light, at that time.
Yeah, they called me Yellow Gal, which
wow.
gave my mother a very bad time.
So even among ourselves, we obviously show the
That's
same.
right. So whatever the blacks are going to say about me, or whatever the whites are going to say about me, they have to handle it. Mm-hmm. That's their problem,
okay.
Not mine. And I'm not going to make it my problem.
How now do you? How now is your career looking? Obviously, a lot of the things that kept you from performing here a long time. Why don't you try some of this? This is.
What is it that?
Carrot juice.
Carrot juice. Oh, I love carrot juice.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Why didn't you bring this out earlier?
Well, I didn't want to stop your pace. I realized that was very difficult. And anyway, though, but, speaking of that, I obviously now your career is seemingly moving in a much more stable direction. I mean, you're going to be on Broadway in the near future, and you're performing at DB's this week.
First of all, I don't understand the word stable, because there's nothing in the world that is stable.
Oh, okay.
Except within yourself, that inner kind of spirit that always keeps you intact. Everything else outside of that is not stable. Because you don't know if these lights are going to suddenly go off right now. That's not stable, no matter what it looks like. Now you bring the flower.
Absolutely, absolutely. I understand. Let me just interrupt. Now, I understand. Wait a minute. I have to build up to this, you know, theatrics, right? I understood, we were watching, obviously, all of us watched the Tomorrow Show, and when you were talking to Tom Snyder, he said that you didn't like cut flowers. So what we decided to do, we decided to buy this vase. So after the flowers died, you could remember it.
I take the vase home, can I?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh, that's very sweet. But somebody asked me the other day, it's somebody's writing some article for a newspaper or a magazine, and he said, can I have your opinion as to why colored people are always late? And I said, because we don't live by the clock. We live by the sense of life. And this is it. All right.
Okay.
You prove my point.
Okay, absolutely. We understand that in television. Everybody that tells us we deal with time, then they got to understand that black television is going to be a little bit different anyway.
We deal with the clock of life.
What does your show, your new show, contain? The thing that they can expect to see at DB's when everybody goes out? Just a little bit of
I can't explain that. You've just come to see Eartha Kitt, and whatever you find,
that's going to be it.
That's it.
Whatever you see, indeed. I mentioned, I was talking to you in the car as I came along, and just a few words about that. You've met Indira Gandhi, and you met Albert Einstein before he died.
Yeah.
You mentioned to me one particular reason why you wanted to meet that person. I alluded to it earlier about being in the same space and time. What did you find when you met Albert Einstein? That's just, as probably one of the most outstanding human beings that has been around, let alone even going into supposedly his brilliance and that kind of thing.
What did I find when I met him? He had a sense of timing, which may be very difficult for me to explain because I can't really.
Mm-hmm.
His sense of timing had to do with the kind of vibrations and meeting of a person that came into his world. And his sense of timing was perfect. Because he could vibrate, giving this vibration, receiving it back, utilizing it, calculating it, and give it back again, and let the other person handle it. So it was a marvelous mathematical, if you want to think of it in those terms, it was a marvelous mathematical, energetic, vibrating feeling that we were both using our computing machines in order to feel each other to the best of our ability, get as much energy out of that person as is possible, use it and give it back. And that's what the theory of relativity is all about.
With that, I'd like to say...
In essence, of course.
With that, I'd like to say that it's been, I don't know how you say it's been great, and all of those other cliches and everything, but I guess I have to say something, I don't know, I'm trying to think of something profound, but nothing comes profound.
You're trying to get rid of me.
to say, no, seriously, in all seriousness, I do think that that you do represent probably one of the best human beings at our particular time in space and history, and I'm glad that we had an opportunity to talk to you. I'm glad that everybody had a chance to see you. And that's not patronizing, that's not anything but say it's not apologizing for being late. Just saying thank you for being here.
You're quite welcome.
Okay. And thank you.